Hi, Hillary. Oh, you're muted.
Oh. Hi, is that Morgan?
Yeah, it's me.
How are you?
Good. So I was looking at all of the security features. So the waiting room is enabled.
Yes.
Do you want them to hide their profile pictures?
To hide?
Yes.
No,
hide.
that's okay. I think that part's okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I've made it so that they can't share the screen.
Okay.
I've also made it so that they can't rename themselves.
Oh.
Because remember they did that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But that's what that one person did.
Yeah, smart. Smart.
There's also, so I enabled the chat feature, but I made it so that they can only send it to the hosts.
Perfect.
They can unmute themselves. And
Can we change that one?
So yeah, so I'll click that so that they can't unmute themselves.
Okay.
But then let me know when you want me to change that.
Yeah, is that something a host could do as well? Because that way, because
they'll be able to.
Yeah, because it's might get complicated because like after each speaker, we want to give people the chance. It would figure it'd be easier after each speaker.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just this little like a shield at the bottom that says security. Do you have do you want me to make you a host too?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so you should be able to click on security as well.
Oh yeah, okay, so click on. Oh yeah, oh that's easy. Wow.
Yeah, they got it all locked down.
Yeah, so logistically it'll be easier if we deal with that, so that's perfect. Thank you for showing me that.
Yeah, and if I guess if something awful happens, you could suspend all of the participant activities.
Right.
I don't think it will though.
Yeah, that's cool though. Huh. Is that new?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the other meetings don't really, they are not as high tech as this meeting. I feel like a lot of them are like just people on their iPads.
Right.
I'm gonna admit Julie. There she is. Make her a host.
Hey, Julie.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
My light is really bright.
Your hair is looking real nice tonight.
Thanks, I got it cut last week.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Julie, have you met Morgan yet? Our concierge hostess with the mostess?
I'm an owl.
I think she was on last meeting, but I have not seen her face yet, but nice to meet you, Morgan.
Thank you. I honestly don't look great right now, but
no, I'm not suggesting you put on camera, but
owl will suffice.
No, it's all good.
Owl's a lot cuter than me. So I just want you, so I did make you a host and I talked to Hillary about all the features that we enabled, but just so that you can see, if you look at the bottom, there's like this little shield that says security. And you can, right in the middle, it says unmute themselves. So right now everyone's muted. They can't unmute themselves. Since you were a host, you were able to unmute yourself. But if we click on this, they will be able to unmute themselves.
Okay.
And there's other features too, but like they can't share their screen. They can start their video. And they can't rename themselves. So they can't rename themselves Hillary or something. Like last time.
That's what happened before.
Oh, is that how it happened? Interesting.
Yeah, I thought you were like ambushed at home. I wasn't even sure.
I was like, Hillary called me fat in the chat. I was like, that wasn't me, I swear. Oh,
crazy.
That was terrible.
I know, that was bad. So yes, I didn't even think about that. That's a good call.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But I can rename them if I know who they are, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So if someone wants to rename themselves, they can just send Julie a chat.
I think so. Yeah, I think you should be able to do that.
Okay. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but I know one person that I do know logs in from her friend and it says Maria, but it's really someone else.
Incognito.
Yeah, which, I don't think it's a big deal, but
Yeah, probably if you just click on them, it'll let you rename them.
okay. Yeah, that's usually how I do it. So in the waiting room, so I'm gonna let him in.
Okay. I was just about to ask.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, you see that too, because you're co-host, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were just having our little private chat. But I'm gonna mute myself. So but if you do need me, I'm right here.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Morgan.
I'm like Big Brother.
Hey, actually, Morgan, just one thought. Can we
Sure.
actually turn off the recording and then start it when we start the business meeting? Is that cool?
Yes.
Hey, Eric.
All right. My name is Eric G. I'm the vice chair of the Helderberg Neighborhood Association. I just want to welcome you to our October meeting. Tonight, we're excited to present you with several speakers. We're working on the important quality of life and improvements in our neighborhood. And we're just going to pop up the agenda here. One second. All right. As you can see, we're going to have some updates, and then we're going to have Jason West going to speak to us, and then representative from Assemblywoman Pat Fahey's office. And then you're going to hear from some of the usual folks we hear from at these meetings. So we'll have them all at the end. And if we could pull back the agenda. All right. But first, we're going to get started. First, we're going to have Officer Gordon McLean from the Albany Police Department give us an update. But before we do that, I'm sure as some of you are aware, the HNA experienced a hacking at a recent public meeting where some language and some videos were put up. So we have some security measures in place to prevent that from happening again. So participants can send a chat to Julie Breton and ask her to either give her a question or ask her to speak. You also have the option to use the raise your hand feature, or else you can turn your camera on and actually raise your hand yourself, and we'll try to get to you in due course. Just understand that we have to monitor and see who is raising their hand, who's not. And when we do see that, we'll get to you. And again, we apologize for any inconvenience this causes. But I guess as far as with having Zoom and other things in our lives, this is something we just have to deal with. But we're still going to get it done and have a meeting. So now I'm going to turn it over to Officer McLean, and he can give us his update.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to, I know everybody's a little interested or very interested in the incident that happened last Monday on Academy Road, the shots fired call. We don't have much information right now other than it appears there's a vehicle speeding away. There was several shots fired. There was no property damage. There were no victims. It was caught on a Ring doorbell video camera. We reviewed camera, we viewed that camera, we reviewed several other cameras in the area. We brought in a K9 to search for shell casings. I spoke to supervisors and officers that were on the scene that evening. We spent a couple hours there clearing the scene and making sure that there were no victims. And obviously there was, it definitely sounds like shots were fired in the video that was seen. And neighbors were adamant that there were shots fired and cars speeding away. So we kind of, I know nobody wants to hear that we don't have anything further on it, but we really don't have anything further on it. But we did spend a couple hours clearing the scene to make sure that there was no one injured and no property damage in that incident alone. I don't have the normal 30-day stats that I usually provide. I could send them tomorrow by email or the next few days by email. We can share them. But I have to say, all in all, I get the shift reports every day for all 3 shifts. Things have been very quiet, with the exception of the normal calls for service, Albany Med, St. Peter's that are in the zone, Parsons. Those are the 3 locations that we have the highest call volume. But all in all, burglaries, larcenies, everything's pretty low. I haven't had many complaints since August about the bars and restaurants on Scotland Ave being open later than they should be. One thing I just want to touch on, people are complaining about the crosswalks, people not yielding people in the crosswalks. I spoke to Lieutenant Johnson about it. We're going to put out a detail. Traffic safety is aware of it. They're going to spend some time over there. I'll be out myself doing some traffic enforcement, at least pulling people over and advising them, kind of getting the word out. I know everybody notices it, but everybody's probably guilty of it as well. It's hard to notice someone standing, when you're driving down a busy street and people are standing in the crosswalk, you just kind of think someone's standing on the side of the road and it doesn't hit you till you drove past them. And I think that happens to a lot of people. But in any event, when the lights are flashing in the crosswalk and people are blown by at 30, 40 miles an hour, we got to do something about it. So we will definitely address that. And I don't know if anybody has any other questions, any other concerns.
Officer, I have a question as it relates to the crosswalk and the lights flashing. I think it's a relatively new concept for the city of Albany. I know it's been around in different countries and different cities perhaps, but perhaps maybe some kind of a public effort by maybe with like the Times Union to get across like maybe what these things are. I think people just don't know that they're supposed to stop because it's new concept to them. So I don't know if there's been any thought to kind of making some kind of a public gesture out there that these are out there, and when you see these flashing lights, you're supposed to yield. I mean, it seems like it's common sense, but my sense is that maybe people just don't know about it.
Right. I know. I would agree with you. I think a lot of people just don't know, and I think a lot of people just, like I said, it's. I think they notice after the fact, after they've already passed the crosswalk, and they're like, "Oh, geez, I should have stopped for that." But I think, I think we should probably put something out, social media, maybe the news, the paper, just reminding people, and obviously enforcement. If people see people getting pulled over, and they might think twice. So, but yeah, I mean, you would think that at least the crosswalks with the flashing lights would be enough. But it doesn't seem to be. I mean, I think it helps, but I don't think everybody's paying attention and following the rules. So we'll definitely have to adjust it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I walk often with my dog, and sometimes it's a long wait before people recognize that there's lights flashing and they don't understand that they should have stopped. So, but I also agree that some people get impatient and don't give enough time. They shouldn't expect to walk out in the crosswalk and immediately have people stop. I mean, that's what I've encountered with people too. Like, you have to give cars a minute to see you. So I appreciate any efforts on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge that there have been numerous folks in the neighborhood who have reached out to us about, the Monday night incident and a variety of different public safety, pedestrian safety, a variety of issues around this broader theme. And we, HNA wants our membership to know that this is something that we're taking very seriously, and that we're actively engaging our elected officials, leadership, within the Albany Police Department and other city officials, to better understand what are the range of options we have as a neighborhood to ensure the safety of our community. So we don't have a lot of updates on that topic right now outside of tonight's speakers, but this is something that we're in the process of exploring and figuring out what those options are. So, and we've gotten more recently communications requests to pursue this topic. So you'll be hearing more from us on these issues.
Any other questions or concerns for Officer McLean? Okay. Well, as far as I can see, I see none. So I guess we'll move along a little bit if that's okay. We're going to go around, or who we have at least for board members of the HNA, and introduce ourselves. Again, as I said at the when we kicked this off, that my name is Eric G. I live over on Pinewood Ave with my 3 daughters and my wife Amy, and my dog, and now it's 4 cats. I think when you last heard from me, it was less cats than that. So they're increasing, and hopefully we've capped them at this point. But enough on that. Go to Hillary.
Hi, good evening. Hillary Papineau, HNA Chair. I live over on Cardinal Ave. And I am expecting to have a baby pretty soon. So if I disappear early, that's why. So thanks, everyone. Glad you're here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Rattan, HNA Community Liaison. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're glad you're here. And I live on Long Ridge Avenue. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chris Halpin. I'm the HNA treasurer. I live on Academy Road. And thanks for everybody for being here.
Okay. And I think that's who we have with us thus far. We're going to also give some information about upcoming events with the HNA. But before we do that, I just want to note that on October 2nd, a longtime Albany resident who's an active member in Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, Henry Madej, passed away. And we understand he was active in the city of Albany and other matters. And we just want to send him and his family the sympathies from the Neighborhood Association. So now I'm going to defer to my colleagues here, and they're going to give you some updates as to what the HNA will be up to in the coming months. So we have Mary, or do we have Julie?
I can jump in for Mary.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say sorry about that. I had to unmute, but
I know, me too. Julie, why don't you kick us off and then I'll cover Halloween.
Sure. Yeah. So October 29th is the Hackett Boulevard Halloween event. It was last year, the city of Albany started it, and we are continuing that on October 29th. The event runs from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. If anyone is interested in volunteering from the Neighborhood Association, we would appreciate that. The city of Albany is sponsoring the event. However, the volunteers are up to the neighborhood. So we would appreciate any help there we can. And the shifts are anywhere from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And you can contact HNA email or by Facebook Messenger, whichever you choose. So just wanted to acknowledge Raganese Imports on with us tonight. They're my favorite sandwich shop, and it's so nice to see you guys. So we partnered with them over the summer. And oh, sorry, here's the Halloween event, and you can go to our web page or our Facebook page or Instagram page, and you can see all the details. But you can either call or email us if you'd like to volunteer. So thank you for that. And back to Raganese. So thank you again, Raganese, for piloting this very successful program with us over the summer. We worked with the NORC, which stands for the Neighborhood Naturally Occurring Retirement Community. We were looking to work with a restaurant locally in our neighborhood to help support them, which we did, and that was Raganese. And what we did was we asked volunteers to deliver meals to the people in the NORC. So if you're not familiar with NORC, basically NORC is, like I said, a naturally occurring retirement community where older adults that live in our neighborhood have services available to them, including outreach and support from the local NORC. So they reached out to their clients in the neighborhood, see if they're interested in getting a delicious meal delivered from Raganese. Volunteers from the Neighborhood Association and board members went to Raganese, boxed up all the meals with the NORCs, and we delivered them. People were very excited about this, and we are doing it again on Thursday, December 2nd. So if you know anybody that's eligible for the NORC program, look out for more information from us, and you'll know more then. But that's the date, save the date for that for now. If anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. Or if
and just one other quick note too, Julie. Thank you. That was an awesome recap. We're going to continue this partnership long term, we believe. And so, if there are other restaurants down the road that might be interested in participating as well, definitely reach out.
Yes. So thank you, Raganese, for helping us with a successful program. We look forward to doing that with you again. And I guess it's back to Eric, unless there's anything else.
Okay, that sounds good. And I guess speaking of saving the dates, make sure you save the date for our next meeting, which is now scheduled for Wednesday, December 15th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a good one. So we're going to acknowledge and thank our outgoing Common Council members and welcome the newly elected members representing the 7th and the 9th wards. This will also be our annual meeting, which we're going to elect board members and present the organization's annual budget. And I guess anything else that may come up, but that's going to be the main theme of the meeting, which probably should be enough for that time frame. So that'll be December's meeting. So as far as tonight's meeting, again, it's based upon focused on the quality of life issues within the neighborhood. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris Halpin, and he's going to explain a little more what that's all about. Chris.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, everybody. So, the Neighborhood Association has been listening to the concerns of neighbors and businesses over the past few years. And a lot of the topics that kept been coming up that people were talking about was traffic issues and the amount of traffic on New Scotland Avenue, especially as it related to the development of 563. People were always concerned about that. We also had a business panel in March where we heard from businesses, and one of the concerns that we heard was the lack of lighting, particularly between Parkwood and Maplewood on New Scotland Avenue. As you'll know, that that's an area where there's several businesses over there. And it is pretty dark. I mean, if you go down that street, the sidewalk over there, it's pretty dark. So we just wanted to make sure that we're not forgetting about these issues that our neighbors and our businesses have been bringing up. So we want to make sure that that's a focal point of the things that we discuss. One of the things that we really wanted to touch on tonight was the traffic area study that was conducted several years ago by the city of Albany. We unfortunately were not able to get somebody from the city to come and discuss the traffic issue that was done, the study that was done, particularly around the St. Peter's area and the hospital area. And, it's important. That's something that the Neighborhood Association is going to continue to actively seek out questions on, and what the status of. There were several recommendations that were put forth through this traffic study. And, looking at those recommendations that were cited in the report, a lot of those were not addressed. Specifically, I can just name one. One of the report talked about restriping New Scotland Avenue, especially as it relates to past Hackett Boulevard going up towards 85. Nobody ever knows if that's 2 lanes or 1 lane, and so, but those issues were never addressed. And we just want to let our neighbors know that we care about what they've been bringing forth to us. So that being said, although we weren't able to have somebody come and discuss the traffic study, we do have Jason West here, who's going to talk about the lighting issues that have been brought forth. So just to put that all in context, that's what we're here about. I don't know, Hillary, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, basically just reiterating what Chris said, we appreciate people coming forward, business coming forward to those concerns, and also Assemblywoman Fahey's office is here tonight as well, to share their efforts also on this topic. So there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of engagement on this. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, one other thing I'll say about that before we go back to Jason is that as it relates to traffic, that's one thing that we have Assemblywoman Fahey's office here to talk about, because that was something, I don't want to speak for what they're going to say, but the traffic issue, and that's something I think that she wants to discuss. So that's partly why we're having the Assemblywoman's office here with us tonight. And I do want to give a shout out to Councilwoman Judy Duche for really bringing forefront the lighting issue in her budget recommendations to the city. So thank you, Judy, for that. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you if you want to go ahead and introduce Jason and next steps.
Absolutely. So I think we've heard about what Jason's going to talk about, but we're going to have Jason West, the energy manager for the City of Albany's Office of Sustainability, give us a talk and an overview about the streetlights projects in the neighborhood, and it'll be open to questions. And at this point, Jason, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just by way of introduction, obviously my name is Jason West. I'm the energy manager, which means that half of my job is managing the streetlight program that the city now has. The other half is dealing with sustainability policy for the city. And maybe at a different night we can talk about that sustainability ideas you might have for coming out of the neighborhood. Also, I know you're introducing yourselves based on where you live. So I live on Delaware Ave, somewhere near Whitehall and 2nd Avenue. so I'm not too far. I can walk the Helderberg area. And I've worked for the city since February of 2020. So I wasn't involved in the beginning of the streetlight program, but I am here to see it to its conclusion. The story of the streetlights, of the streetlight buyback is simple and it's short. So I don't have a long speech for you, and maybe we can use that time instead to have a conversation and questions. But the story is that after several years of planning and discussion, in June of 2019, the city of Albany purchased all 10,877 streetlights from National Grid. So we own the streetlights, we own and all the accoutrements that come along with that. Since 2019, we have been converting all of those streetlights from the old familiar HID type lights to new energy efficient LEDs. And I got a couple of numbers for you. The savings we're looking at is just over $3 million a year in operations and maintenance costs, as well as electricity energy costs. We're looking to save approximately 5.5 million kilowatt hours a year in electricity, and preventing approximately 2.7 million pounds of carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere. So this is a slam dunk on at least 3 fronts. And those who were involved in these discussions early on and can support that, I think. Our expenses have gone from over $4 million a year since 2019, over $4 million a year to under $1 million a year for electricity bills and maintenance as well. And all of this was made possible with a partnership with the New York Power Authority. So NYPA has been a critical partner in this whole project. At the conclusion of the construction phase, we'll be kind of on our own and maintaining this through NYPA, but phasing out our relationship with NYPA to manage our own utility in the coming years. And honestly, that's it. That's the story. That's the project that the city has been working on for several years now. And I know I got an email, I believe it came from Councilmember Deshay via Chris about some specific thoughts about street lighting on New Scotland. One piece of low-hanging fruit I want to dispatch early is there was a concern particularly about, let me see my notes, between West Erie and Parkwood is particularly dim. And I just want to let you know, we are looking into installing new lights in that area to brighten that section of New Scotland up. And if there's other small details like that, we can, please let me know. We can talk about the options for street lighting, whether it's replacing the luminaires with brighter bulbs, more or less, or if we have to, installing a new pole where there aren't any currently. Now the big question, and this is, I think, the bulk of our conversation, is the thought that what might work for New Scotland between, and correct me if I'm wrong, roughly between Russell Sage and St. Peter's, would be to extend those kind of, we call them Broadway poles, because they were designed specifically for Broadway in downtown. The decorative, the post-top decorative lights that are in that one section of New Scotland, to extend that between those two landmarks, between Russell Sage and St. Peter's. We have a couple options. I know pole replacements was a big concern, and we are definitely replacing the poles that are decaying. That's a no-brainer. We're absolutely doing that. But the type of light is a tougher conversation, to be honest. What we have now are called Cobra heads, because they look obviously like a Cobra head. And the base option we have is to replace all of those Cobra heads, keep the Cobra heads we've already installed, but replace all the poles. So basically you have new versions of what you already have. And that's the option. That's the least expensive, most efficient option. The Broadway pole option, I have to be honest, we can't afford. It is over $16,000 per pole to install lights of that kind. So we're looking at more than $500,000 just for that stretch of New Scotland, and that's a hefty price tag. And I can't even, and that's the minimum cost, because that doesn't include the cost if we have to install those decoratives in concrete. So it doesn't include the cost of jackhammering up the sidewalk and replacing it if that's needed. I haven't actually checked the whole strip for that, but that would be an additional cost. what I'm considering is a middle ground. And that would be to keep or replace the rotting poles with new metal poles, and install what you might have noticed on Delaware Ave going south into Delmar. They're called teardrops. They are they look like a drop of water falling off the tip of a leaf, if you can picture that. They have a nice decorative arm coming off the metal pole, and the light is pointed downwards towards the sidewalk. That cost, let me just check my notes here. We're looking at option 2. That's about $7,000 per pole, as opposed to the 16,000 plus for those standalone decoratives. And just for reference point, if we were just to simply keep the arms and luminaires we have now that are new and replace the poles that are rotting and rusting, we're looking at a cost of about $4,500 to $4,800 for that option. Now, we still have some question marks for the larger project. There are some critical upgrades that we need. For example, we're looking at installing lighting and underpasses in the south end let me think, South Pearl and 787, a little farther north at Livingston, and then another one where I think Broadway and 787. We are actually still waiting on the cost of that. As you can imagine, the labor and supply chain issues that are affecting every other aspect of the economy are hitting us as well. And I'll give you one example. Those Broadway poles that we're installing on Broadway have a lead time of 35 weeks just to get the materials. So it's a long time for this stuff. This is a slow moving process. So not knowing the cost of those critical underpass lighting areas, I can't give you a definite answer on New Scotland. Beyond that, we are absolutely replacing the poles, and we are absolutely looking to add lights where there are currently gaps, creating pools of darkness. So I know it's not what you want to hear. I know it's not what any of us wanted, because honestly, I would love those Broadway poles all through the city, but just the price tag is enormous. And in the context of the whole project, I think it's more likely we'll be able to possibly get those teardrops, which will still be decorative, still look nicer than the Cobra heads, but won't have that effect of continuing the streetscape from that one strip of commercial area that we have it in now. And that decision was made by former planning commissioner Chris Spencer, and I remember speaking with him, and it was the reason that strip was selected for those Broadway poles was it is a key commercial strip, but the rest of New Scotland up to St. Peter's being largely residential with again some key businesses, the cost is just too great for those Broadway poles. So I'm happy to discuss it. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to take questions after the meeting. If you'd like to give me a call, I can give you my email address. I can give you my cell phone number. And actually, I'll put those in the chat so everyone has them. Especially moving forward as a footnote, please feel free to email me, call me if you see lights out. If there's a problem with any of our infrastructure, please let me know. You may notice it before we do. So with that, thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk about this to anyone who's willing to listen about streetlights. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
Can I just chime in here?
Yeah,
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And just the idea of making all the lights, this continuity of having all the lights the same. I don't think it was the thought that we would overnight replace all the lights at once. I think we realized that the cost, it's ineffective and it's very costly. But as the city does replace streetlights throughout this, the strip, that there was a consideration as those change to have them as more decorative as the Broadway lights that you had mentioned. Would there be, I know you talked about maybe some kind of compromise, but would there be a possible compromise in terms of, using those Broadway type lights in front and part of the other, like the middle section of New Scotland business area between like Maplewood and Parkwood? Because there are some businesses in there. And while I
Or
think,
have clusters of them along New Scotland, you think?
yeah, I mean, well, I think the teardrop lights would look good. I wonder, they'll probably provide some lighting with on the street or the sidewalk. Do they also provide a good enough amount of light within the street as well?
They do, yes.
They do, okay.
They're designed to.
Yeah, I think the appeal of those Broadway lights is that there's the overhead light above the street, and then you get the light on the sidewalk that provides some good illumination. And not to mention, there's also a children's center over there too, and it's just pretty dark.
Mhm. It is dark, particularly at the Children's Center?
Yeah, I think like between Maplewood and Parkwood, it's pretty dark over there on the sidewalk.
Just so everyone knows, I've given you all the ability to unmute yourselves if you have questions. And it looks like Councilwoman Jashette has a question. If you want to go first, go ahead.
I would love to. Thank you very much for being here, Jason. So I want people to know that when the bond issue, couple things. One of the things we need to understand is that there is, for the next 14 years, a $2.2 million bond payment that is due, in addition to the less than $1 million in maintenance and utility costs. So there's not a full, it would sound like there's a full $3 million savings. Currently, there isn't currently that kind of savings, but it still was clearly a great investment on our part. When this was being passed, being considered by the council, I made it clear that there were a lot of poles along New Scotland Avenue that are the Cobra poles that are rusting. Minimally, they need coats of paint. Some of them are tilted. I've pointed out repeatedly to Chris Spencer and Rachel McEnany that the two light poles, like the ones that exist along most of our neighborhood right now, two of them spontaneously fell about 6-7 years ago. And so, there is a safety concern. I've gone and walked the whole area, and I don't have as much of a concern about most of the poles, but there are, in terms of actual safety issues, but there are one or two that do concern me. There also apparently was one further up New Scotland Avenue that at some point was removed and is missing. I think it's in a location between Maplewood and Oakwood. So these are concerns, but I made it very clear at that time that a lot of these needed to be replaced, and that consideration should be given to more decorative lighting in these areas, and that is before the Neighborhood Association started raising these particular issues. There is $1.5 million left in that bond. The project is predominantly finished. I mean, by virtue of the fact that the New York Power Authority is ready to turn this project over to Albany for the maintenance of this. That is an indication that that the project is essentially considered done, even though these things that I raised early on in this in the discussions about the bonding and us purchasing these lights and the concerns, even though they haven't been addressed. And I am concerned about that, but that also makes it a prime topic of discussion. I also want to let people know that I encourage the city not to borrow the full $29 million that the council authorized, because we weren't sure how much the price tag would be on this project. And indeed, they only borrowed $26 million only, but I mean, $26 million on it. So there's actually, in addition to the $1.3 million that is still in the bond account per the treasurer a couple of weeks ago, there is also this issue there being $3 million additional that the council has authorized as part of this project. The final thing I want to note is that we just passed the revised zoning code, or the USDO, out of committee. And that document talks about, has a requirement essentially that you are not supposed to be switching lighting styles within a block. It is an indication of, from a planning standpoint, from an attractiveness for our neighborhood, exactly what the Helderberg Neighborhood Association is asking for. So this idea of having some be Cobra and some be Teardrop and some be the Broadway lights, you know, I don't think, personally, I don't think that that's a wise investment for us. I think what the HNA is asking for is exactly right in terms of the cohesiveness of lighting along our only major arterial for our neighborhood. I had another thought about that. Oh yes, and the teardrop lights, Jason. When you're talking about the teardrop lights, I'm looking at Delaware Avenue and I'm seeing utility poles that are up that have the decorative teardrops lights attached. And I note that our utility poles in our neighborhood are mostly in the backyards. So along New Scotland Avenue, these are the freestanding poles that are fully our responsibility. They're not the, you know, so there's might be a couple places where a utility pole has been used for attaching a Cobra light to, but I think that 90% of the area that we're talking about, we're really talking about the teardrops would then have to be attached to a brand new pole, which then you have the cost that starts to, you know, then I don't know why you wouldn't be doing the, you know, what the neighborhood association is asking for. This can make a really significant difference and you know, a real aesthetic commitment to this community, where we've had so many businesses, so many people invest so much money, not only in homes, but also in commercial zoned properties. There were times when the area along our commercial strip had a number of vacant properties, vacant buildings, and those are almost fully occupied at this point. And I think that, so I just can't endorse enough, you know, I understand costs, but when you're talking about potentially spending more than 50% of the amount of money already, if you were to do the teardrops on this, you know, spending the additional $200,000 in order to do the what the neighborhood association is asking for this stretch, I think is very wise. And so I'm sorry, I can't sit here and not advocate for something that I think just makes a lot of sense. And the mayor did run 7 years ago on a platform of supporting neighborhoods. And most of our investment in the city has been in and around the downtown area. You know, I did make that special request to get the funding for the improved sidewalks and streetscape in front of our commercial district, and was pleased that she supported that 6 years ago. This is minor in comparison to the investment that was made there. And there really has not been any other significant improvements to our neighborhood otherwise from the city. So that's my pitch. And thank you for being here and for listening. And you know, hope I'm hearing from residents and just conveying, what I'm hearing that I think makes sense. I'll stop talking now. Thank you.
I do want to just make one point, and thank you, council member. Just, I'm going to take everything that I hear in the notes I have back to our streetlights team. I mean, there's not a decision I'm going to make tonight on a Zoom meeting. There's conversations that need to happen about this, but thank you. I wanted to hear everything so I can bring it back to our team and we can discuss the option.
Yeah, and Jason and Judy both, thank you very much. I mean, part of why we were hoping that you'd both be able to join us tonight is to really understand these issues, understand the short and the long term. And I wanted to acknowledge that we have a couple of folks on the line tonight. We have John and Vinny from Raganese, and we have Dan from over at some of the businesses who would raise this issue. And so I want to make sure both of you, all of you have the opportunity. So actually, I think John and Vinny, it looks like you want to jump in, which is great. So let's make sure you get to unmute yourselves. Local business owners.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I want to say thank you, Judy, for explaining a lot of what I wanted to say already. But also, besides the business here, and one of the issues I brought up with the extra lighting is safety. Extra lighting promotes safety because dark areas, crime is going to increase. If an area is well lit, it's going to thwart something from happening. Now, besides having the business here on New Scotland Avenue, I also speak because my mother lives on West Erie. And when she walks home at night from here after helping us, it's pretty dark. And if it wasn't for a few homes that keep their lights on outside, it's very, very dark walking over across the street, to the point where we always make sure somebody's walking home with her because of that. And besides ourselves being here, next door is St. Catherine's Center for Children as well. Things happen there as well. Then you have St. Peter's and State Farm over there as well, which is somewhat residential and commercial for them. I think they'd feel very comfortable as well having that extra lighting. We have had some minor instances happening here around the business, both last year and the year before. Like I said, thank God they were minor, no injuries, but nonetheless, I still feel having it better lit will serve everyone better. And like Judy said, if we're gonna go with half of the cost to implement the other one, why not go the full way? And nothing has been done on this stretch for many years. We've been here 35 years. We've been on West Erie since 1974. So we're going back a little ways here. And not much has been done on this stretch other than the commercial strip further down the street, which looks nice. I'm not saying they have to rip out all the sidewalks and the whole strip, but bring it to today.
Well, thank you. I don't know, Jason, if you want to respond to any of that, or if we want to take another question.
No, I have notes. Thank you. I'll check out the West Erie and New Scotland area. When I'm at the office tomorrow, I'll see what we have out there. Any places that you think we need more light, please let me know. And again, like I said, I'll bring this whole conversation back to our streetlights team.
Great.
Thanks, Jason. I just want to chime in one last quick thing. As I just want to give you guys a shout out, Jason, because I noticed that the application that you guys have on your website, where if there's a street light out, it's very easy to report it, and you guys take quick action on that. So that is appreciative. I know I've used that myself, that on the city's website. So thank you for that.
Jason, I have a comment or question really. I know that with these street lights, our LED lights, that we can, if there's a problem area or if there's a problem, you can turn up the light. And I'm wondering how often you do that, and do you wait to people to bring a certain area to your attention? Is that something you can do over right now, over on West Erie, to kind of raise the light a little bit, increase the number of whatever it's called, lumens or something?
We could, well, the short answer is that when we install lights of a certain wattage, we set them at the maximum wattage those lamps are capable of emitting. So we can dim them, but we can't make them brighter. If we want brighter lights, we would have to change the luminaire, it's called. And for example, we did that on South Pearl. There was an issue where the lights we installed were just too dim and it was a high crime area. So we just installed a higher wattage bulb. And we can do that if necessary. And we can dim them, but we generally set them to be the maximum wattage that the bulb allows.
That's a little, that's interesting, because is that a big deal to put in a greater wattage? Because that was one of the big selling points of these lights, is that ability to raise the wattage and dim as well. But
it depends on the type of luminaire and what we're doing. So you can replace them. It can get pricey depending on what you're doing. So the Broadway poles are things, some of the Broadway luminaires, the Washington Park luminaires, which are a little fancier, that can get pricey. Some of the simpler ones are easier. So it really depends on the location.
okay, thank you.
I have a comment. This is Dan Dinsmore. We have a business on 435 New Scotland Avenue, a couple doors down from the Raganese folks. We haven't been there as long as they have. We've been there for about 8 years. But we employ about 35 people. And we've had a few instances, although be it minor, the employees, get quite scared because there's been some car break-ins and those types of things around our building. So just wanted to kind of back up the statement that, we're investing into the area, state in Albany, growing business, and the aesthetic is extremely important to the businesses in the neighborhood to keep the level and scale of aesthetic at a certain level, which helps the businesses in the area quite a bit. So one, my point being that the lighting is critical just for safety reasons. And two, the aesthetic improves the overall appearance and it helps the businesses in the area. So I just wanted to get my point in there that the additional funds being spent into the aesthetic and the safety within the area is critical to the growth of the area, the stability of the area, and also to bring in better types of businesses within the area and to help our employees because they have complained about it multiple times.
All right.
And I do appreciate your time, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for that input. Does anyone else have any questions before we move to our next speaker? Next slide. Like scanning the Zoom boxes, there is none. So again, thank you, Jason, for that input and everyone else that had something to say. I think that was a good discussion on a good issue. So next, we're going to hear from updates from Pat Fahey's office on the work to increase public transit ridership to offset traffic volume concerns. Assemblymember Fahey couldn't be here herself tonight, so we'll be hearing from Nicolina Kalizza, who is her Director of Community Affairs. And I'm sorry if I messed up your last name a little bit, but it happens to me a lot too. So again, sorry about that. But I'll go to you now. But we have to unmute you. It looks like. There you go.
Yeah, no worries. You actually got my name right. So very
good.
Thank you for that.
Almost 100% tonight. Good. All right.
Yeah,
It's all yours.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So hi, everybody. I see familiar faces. I see not familiar faces. So for folks that don't know me, my name is Michelina Kulesha. I'm Assemblywoman Fahey's Director of Community Affairs. So I work on projects primarily that involve connecting constituents to resources that they need, whether it be state agencies, federal reps, or assisting on issues within the neighborhood. So we're always happy to hear from folks. And I'm happy to also provide, well, Hillary has my contact information as well as Chris, but if they can share after the call, we're always happy to hear from people and get their input on things. I'm also a resident of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, or not association, but Pine Hills Neighborhood. So I'm on South Pine Avenue, so not too far off from you all. Pat couldn't make it today as she's experiencing a critical family health emergency. And so she regrets not being here, but I'm happy to speak to any updates that we have on the Universal Access project. So for folks that aren't familiar with Universal Access, it provides employers with an opportunity to provide to their employees by way of free transportation via CDTA. And so it connects employers, schools, and homes by providing environmentally friendly commuting options. In particular, during a time when COVID has also significantly changed the way we perceive work, universal access is really important in that it offers another incentive to workers that would otherwise not have a vehicle or consistent transportation, and for free as well. And so in addition, it reduces the need for expensive parking facilities, has a significant impact on traffic congestion, and as a result, traffic-based incidents, as we've heard from our meeting today so far, and is also an environmentally friendly option. And so some folks might have heard from the Assembly hearing on transportation today, at which the CDTA CEO Carm Basile spoke. Pat has been very active in speaking with CARM to try to sort of mirror a universal access program at St. Peter's Hospital that is comparable to that of Albany Med, as well as other local institutions that have instituted this sort of program. So the same sort of structure, a pre-negotiated rate per ride with the ceiling. So she had worked on this a few years ago, and since its implementation with Albany Medical Center, for example, boardings with CDTA have increased the past five years from a few thousand a month to 25,000, and has removed 175 cars from area roads. And so you definitely see, this sort of opportunity being utilized by folks in the community. And it also has very similar benefits as well as another project that Pat's been working on, which has to do with reimagining 787, reconnecting communities by taking down 787 and building a park where that highway currently is. And so this is another transportation sort of issue, an equity issue that the Assemblywoman is very passionate about. And so in these conversations with Carm Basile, he relays that the challenges surrounding the situation, particularly to St. Peter's, have to do with the fact that it's the folks that run St. Peter's are Trinity Health, which is based in Minnesota. And so despite this overwhelming sort of support for this venture, and similar ventures, with the Albany College of Pharmacy, SUNY, Rivers Casino of Universal Access, the communication with Trinity Health has been very, very challenging. And so there is a bit of a gap, a lack of accountability, and just sort of having that conversation has been very difficult over the past couple months. And so while on our end of things, the persistence does continue. In the interim, I'm happy to let you folks know that CDTA is advancing plans for a mobility hub on Manning Boulevard at New Scotland Ave. So from what we've learned, this proposed hub will be constructed on Manning Boulevard at the intersection with New Scotland. In addition to providing a comfortable seating station for folks waiting for CDTA buses, there will also be a docking station for CDPHP bicycles as well as scooters, along with space for soon to be unveiled publicly electric vehicle car share car share programs. They also plan to construct a crosswalk with appropriate safety features to connect the hospital campus with St. Peter's expansion on the west side of Manning. So the area formerly, that was the former Maria College. And so with this design, they hope to incorporate the features of the surrounding area and really emphasize the different mobility options that are available to customers, in particular, folks that work at St. Peter's or go to St. Peter's frequently. And so, you know, given Pat's membership of the Transportation Committee in the Assembly, as well as her dedication to walkable communities, as well as this quality of life issue, we will continue to advocate for this and to assist in sort of addressing any gaps that may come up in the interim. But this is all we have for now. And so happy to answer questions or get comments and get those over to Pat. I also do want to mention, just while I have a moment, a couple different updates from our office as well. Two specific things. One is more of a resource. The other is sort of a project that we're unveiling as of late. So first, for folks that might be landlords and that may be familiar with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, this program was administered by OTDA to assist people hit hardly by COVID-19. And so in order to access up to 12 months of back rent from renters and up to 3 months of future rent for people, you know, hard hit that might have lost their jobs, OTDA, once a landlord and a tenant applies for ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, landlords would be eligible to receive that funding. However, we found that in a lot of different circumstances, tenants were either not complying or weren't aware of the program. And so there was a sort of communication barrier that kept tenants from applying. And so as of late, I believe it launched 2 weeks ago, there's now the Landlord Rental Assistance Program, or LRAP. And so landlords are able to apply for this program and this new bucket of funding, regardless of tenants' participation in the program. And so encouraging folks to apply. I believe that my notes say that assistance may be provided for households with rent of up to 150% of the fair market rent for the county where the property is located. And we do have some really excellent partners too at the Albany County Department of Social Services that are able to help folks with the application if needed. So you're welcome to reach out to us if you might know somebody who's a landlord and would be interested in applying, or you have any specific questions about the program. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was our new Assemblywoman Fahey's High School Advisory Council. So we are currently taking nominations from teachers within Assembly District 109 for students that would be interested in participating on a council hosted by the Assemblywoman. And so high school juniors and seniors specifically would have the opportunity of learning about the legislative process, learning about the impact of communications, advocacy, community affairs within the context of the state assembly via 5 weeks of Zoom calls after school. And so we're really hoping to engage local high school students in sort of their experience and civic engagement, what their interests are, and to also show them what we do in our office. And so given sort of the concentration of different high schools within and around Pat's district, we are taking any students that live within Assembly District 109 or that attend a high school outside of the district, but live, so a charter school, a private school, but live within the district. And so the way to be nominated for this is via teacher nomination, actually. We're really trying to get word out to sort of get, you know, a diverse mix of students from different schools. And so I'm happy to send along some flyers with the schedule and information, our contact information, if anyone is interested or would like to learn more about the program. But other than that, happy to take any questions folks might have. And yeah, thank you so much for letting me speak.
Well, thank you. As you said, is there any questions? Oh, looks like Chris might have one. There we go.
Chris, were you gonna jump in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, McLean, thanks for that. Is there anything that we can do as a community or neighborhood to help advocate for, St. Peter's to participate in this universal access program? I mean, hearing that they're based out of, did you say Minnesota? That was something I did not know, and I'm actually quite surprised. I thought St. Peter's was more of a local based thing, and I was kind of surprised by that. But is there something that we could do to help?
Yeah, so not entirely sure as of yet. It is the name of the group is Trinity Health. And that is where they are based. I'm not sure if they run any other local hospitals, but I'd be interested in finding that out. But if the Assemblywoman would be interested in writing a letter of support or anything similar, then we'll definitely let you guys know for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, we really appreciate the advocacy and the work that you and the Assemblywoman and the office are doing. This is such an important issue, and this would have such an impact. I just want to point out too that the Universal Access Program is a specific recommendation within that area hospital plan. So we'll continue to pursue having the city come and speak to that as well. And I don't know if your office is involved in this at all either, but I know Chris had found when we were reading through the document pretty carefully, we also noticed, and we're very excited to see that at 563 New Scotland Ave, that project had agreed to also adopt the Universal Access Program. So wanted to make sure that was on your radar and on the community's radar as well. So it's something we hope to get more information about as well in the future.
Yeah, Hillary, just to chime in with that. So we really, we appreciate the developer chiming in to say that they want to provide this universal access program. And not only did they say they want to do it to the residents, but for the businesses that are within that that new location. So we will be sure to follow up with that. So that's good news.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions or concerns out there for Michelina? All right. Looks like you may be off the hook for now. All right. So we'll go off to generally the next part of our meeting is the announcements from local elected officials and representatives. But before we do that, Chris has some important updates about the post office. So I'm going to turn it over to him for that. And then we'll move on to who's here with us. Chris.
Oh, thanks, Hillary. I'm going to defer mostly to Hillary on this, but I will say that, I know Hillary's been keeping tabs on this, but, this has been an effort between, Congressman Tonko's office, our council members, Fahey and Duche, and the mayor of Albany. This has been a joint effort with the Neighborhood Association to ensure that the post office stays in the city of Albany. Our goal all along has been to make sure that the post office stays at 563 New Scotland Avenue when it gets redeveloped. And Hillary, do you want to share the most recent updates on what's happening with this?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a groundswell of support. I mean, we're incredibly fortunate with our elected leadership. Shout out to Michelina and Assemblywoman Fahey as well. We had about 10 letters of support, as well as from our neighborhood, our fellow neighborhood association. Several of them also reached out, stepped up. So we've had a series of letters that elected officials, CANA, neighborhood associations wrote to USPS, again, reiterating what Chris just said, that we really believe that this location is in the best interest of the community. And so as a result of this, and Congressman Tonko, as Chris mentioned, has been instrumental really as the liaison with the United States Postal Service. And actually tomorrow is a very important meeting that they work very hard to set up between Congressman Tonko and the leadership at USPS Postmaster DeJoy. So that's a big accomplishment and milestone. So we'll have more information after that, but our real hope is to get clarification on what are USPS's long-term plans in terms of both 563 New Scotland, which again, we're hoping will be the permanent location, but we are very grateful and appreciative of all of our elected officials' support and for the developer and USPS for working together to have a temporary location open at 363 New Scotland. So as we've been communicating, that was anticipated to be open after Indigenous Peoples Day. That has been delayed. We're anticipating sometime in October, the next week, couple weeks. We don't have an exact time frame, but we're hoping tomorrow we'll get clarity on that. So, that's the situation. So that the 363 interior will be open at some point, and we're continuing to see how tomorrow's meeting goes, and then get greater clarification on both, on the USPS plan for both of those locations. So I think, Chris, that's probably where we're at. But if anybody has any questions, and want to again thank, Council's member Duche and Fahey very much for your leadership and partnership on these issues. And I think the next part of our agenda is actually turning over to our elected officials and other community reps for updates. If either of you have any additional updates you want to share, by all means, please jump in. Thank you again for both of you very much and Michelina, please also extend our sincere appreciation to Assemblywoman Fahey, and thank you yourself for everything you're doing to advocate for the neighborhood on this important issue.
All right. Well, thank you for those updates. And as we know, construction has started at the old site if you're driving by these days. So, but in any event, we'll turn it over to Councilwoman Duche. Are we just still here?
Thank you. Boy, there's a lot I could talk about, but the main thing that I want to make a point of mentioning is that, well, two things. One is we're working on the budget and doing budget review. It's a reasonable budget. I do have a concern that the $80 million that we are getting from the Rescue Act is not clearly allocated in this particular budget, and I am looking for clarification on how that will be spent, how it actually appears in the existing budget, etc. There are some concerns also about comparative underpayment of some of our employees that makes it difficult for us to retain valuable staff, and we are constantly raising that as an issue. With regard to something I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of, last night, the Planning Committee voted out of committee our revised zoning code, otherwise known as the USDO, Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance. And there are some great improvements in that. It's a streamlined document at this point. There's been a lot of reorganization, but some key factors actually affect a lot of our neighborhoods, and especially that have commercial districts, such as the two commercial districts that we have in or abutting the 9th Ward between Quail and Ontario, and then also up across from St. Peter's. And that is some of the things include improved requirements for buffering, screening, landscaping in those for any projects that might be developed in those areas. Especially any screening and buffering for developments that might occur up against any R2 districts as well as R1 districts. While not as much improvement for against R2 districts as I would have liked, it is there has been a significant improvement. We have been preserving some of the other requirements regarding buffering and screening that were being tinkered with, and in strong advocacy to make sure that we're able to have residents who have invested, who have purchased buildings in R1 and R2 districts, continue to feel like their quality of life is being preserved, even if there is some development in proximity to them. For development, the development at the post office, there was a lot of controversy over that being approved to be 5 stories. What initially was approved was, or what it was zoned for, it was 3.5 stories. That kind of area is now going to be zoned to be approved for 3 stories, so that as opposed to 3.5, so that it will be a bigger jump. It will be a bigger lift for anybody to get a variance to be able to do a 5-story building. I'm not opposed to significant developments, but I do like them to be appropriate, viable scale, and also to make sure that there is appropriate vegetation. That has also been addressed. Some ambiguities in our existing legislation. So I'm very pleased with this. One of the other things I want to let people know about is currently interpretations have been made by the chief planning officer in a couple of different areas with regard to non-conforming uses or projects that might be affecting the immediate neighborhood. And we've put in place a requirement that council members and immediate abutting property owners be informed when something is being determined to be a non-conforming use, or if there's an interpretation affecting a particular piece of property that might have a significant impact on abutting properties. And so they not only get noticed, but then there is a public process for review of that, so that we can make sure that any interpretations that are being made that we can maybe have a say in, that gives the council an opportunity to consider potentially legislation to change the USDO to eliminate ambiguities or where some of these determinations are being made, to again provide additional protections for so many of the people who own properties, as opposed to it being maybe a little bit overly generous with regard to development, protections of development. So there's a balance. We always need to look for that balance. And so we are providing some of that in this USDO. It was reported at a committee. It's going to the county planning committee. There will be another opportunity for a hearing and an opportunity for people to review that document. I think, Kathy, we're on target, hopefully, to adopt this by the first meeting in December, I believe, is what our goal is, so that we're having the current council, who has been working on this issue for over a year now, or for just about a year now, and there was some prior history with regard to that, but to have us be able to go ahead and pass it, rather than essentially potentially starting from scratch with a new council.
I'll just jump in, Judy. You've covered it pretty nicely. This is something that a tremendous amount of energy has been put into this, both by staff and committee members. Judy in particular has put in hours on this. And, it's one of those things, I think, as residents, we can take for granted, the way things look and how things work in the city. I mean, so much of it has to do with planning and zoning. And we took a really deep dive into this. Any resident who brought up issues, we looked at those pretty carefully. So I think in the end, we're very proud of the work that's been done. We did not get to all the issues. There were some more substantial issues that we wish we could have gotten to, that we're going to leave those to the next council. But you can rest assured we took a very deep dive here. So Judy, were you done with your comments? I was just going to touch on another issue.
I think so. I think I talked enough.
Okay.
People know where to reach me with regard to questions and comments, and I hope to do another constituent update within the next week with some more details about some other issues.
Okay, and I did finally see your Hillary. You sent me a note that Officer McLean spoke earlier, but I just wanted to comment that about the gunshots that people heard on Academy Road. It's very upsetting. People, that was on the heels of so many incidents of gun violence, were 7 people, one homicide there over, I forget where it was, North Lake. So when people heard a series of gunshots on Academy Road, you know, you do start to question, is it happening just throughout the city? What can we do? I did raise that in one of our budget meetings with Chief Hawkins from APD, and he did, I thought, you know, they do have ideas about how to address some of those issues. I don't know if Gordy touched on that, but you know, some of it is using technology. You know, you want to find out where shots are being fired, license plate readers, different things like that. And just what we were talking about earlier with Jason about increased lighting in certain areas, those types of things. So I thought it was really important we bring it up tonight, because I know I'm certainly feeling it. My family's feeling it. We're concerned, you know, there's just, even though statistically we're told that crime is down in the city of Albany, these really very public gun violence shootings are extremely upsetting for us all. So I think it's really important that we stay on top of it and push that our police force is addressing it in the best way possible, and our city government as well. And I don't know, Joe, did you speak earlier as well on what's going on with ACPAC or?
No, not yet. I guess I follow you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I just wanted to mention that. And Officer McLean, are you still there? Okay. So if anyone has any questions, you know, we could try to get them answered. Thank
Kathy,
you.
just before Joe jumps on, I just wanted, you know, thank you. You've been incredibly responsive. We appreciate that you've reached out to the chief and, you know, keeping us informed and working to identify those solutions. So we mentioned we were exploring a couple of things, didn't get to detail, but I just wanted to acknowledge, you know, that you've really initiated that and liaising with the chief and the city. So just want to say thank you very much for advocating for the neighborhood on these issues.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I guess as promised, we'll go to Joe next. Oh, you're still muted. There we go.
First, thank you. I'd like to get into the main thing I wanted to talk about is a new program that the police department is starting. But first, mention that one thing ACPAC has been pushing on forever is in support of the police department, but getting them to focus a little bit more on neighborhood issues and the neighborhood unit in particular. There's a serious staffing shortage, and they're attempting to address that. Chris, did you get that? There's a new recruit class coming up in November, and they're anticipating about 30 new recruits in that class, which is a little bit larger than most of the other classes have been. They're now also going to start another class even before this one is finished. So once they finish with their classroom work, and then they start going out to their basically quote on-the-job training, even before they get on the street themselves, they'll want to start another class to work and do the classroom work. So they'll be able to get more staff officers on board a little bit quicker. One of the programs they want to start, though, is called a Community Liaison Program. Right now, it's just a pilot program. And the goal of this is to get new recruits tied into the community before they even get into the community working, before they even start policing. So the goal is to get them to meet everybody in the neighborhood. The relationship between the city and the new recruits has to start before they even start their careers. So what we're looking for is have recruits meet on a one-to-one basis with each ward throughout the city. So they can start the community-based networking. They can learn about every neighborhood in the city, learn the traditions, cultures, and beliefs of those individual communities. So ACPAC will be starting a recruitment process flyers will go out and we're hoping to get people to respond. We'll be reaching out to some people. But what we're looking for is for people to want to meet with these officers on a one-to-one basis, like I said, basically 1 hour a week. And it'll be on a rotating basis so the recruits will be able to learn about the entire city. We have something different going on with our recruits now because now they're actually recruiting outside the city. You no longer have to be a resident of the city to take the job. So we're gonna have people coming from outside the city. So it's for them, it's more critical, but I would say that even for a lot of the other officers that have lived in the city, they may not be familiar with every neighborhood throughout. I mean, so they have to learn everything. And we want them to develop relationships with the people. Again, it's on a one-to-one basis. There's no script that has to be followed. It's just a personal relationship to develop between officers in the community. This is in an effort to encourage community policing, to get officers involved in the community even before they start policing as an officer. So we'll be getting flyers out with information on how to sign up for this, or just to inquire about what it takes, what it'll involve. We'll communicate with you. We'll try to get everybody signed up. And once we get enough volunteers signed up, we'll be able to start connecting them with the recruits. There'll be a joint effort between ACPAC and the training unit of the police department to schedule people. And as I said, have them rotate throughout the city. So if you're volunteering from Ward 7, you're volunteering from Ward 9, wherever, you'll get a recruit 1 week, you meet with them, you talk with them for a few hours, you tell them around, even take them to Raganese. You say, look, if you're in our neighborhood, go to grab a sandwich here or whatever, to make it personal. We want personal relationships to develop, and hopefully these will continue throughout this officer's career in the city. So the community gets to have some input into the training of the police department, and the police department, the new recruits, start learning about the neighborhoods that they're going to be walking through or policing throughout their career. Like I said, ACPAC will be coordinating the volunteer list and coordinating with the police department training unit in order to get these things scheduled through. We've got flyers out and information on the flyers. You can email in a request. Somebody from ACPAC will then contact you about what the procedure is, what's to be expected, and to answer any specific questions. So in a nutshell, that's what this program is going to be starting. The new recruit class starts in November. We expect to start the recruits coming into the community. Again, not as a police officer, not in uniform or anything else, just to come into the community and learn. They should be starting at sometime around the 3rd week of November.
Joe,
yeah.
I'm sorry, finish your remarks, then I'll ask my question.
Go ahead. I'll answer questions now.
Has the requirement that these recruits do not have to be city residents, is that specific to police recruits because to address the shortage, or has this been lifted across city employees?
I don't know all the specifics on it. I know the law requires, from what my understanding of it is, they either have to be a resident of the city or one of the neighboring communities. So now we can be bringing in people from anywhere in Albany County and such.
I can comment on that.
Go ahead.
The New York state law allows it's a public officer law, and it allows police officers to live outside the municipality. I think it has to be in an adjoining municipality. But the city of Albany has required, and I don't think it's changed, they need to be residents of the city when they're taking the test. And I forget exactly, and I believe when they're appointed, and then they're allowed to move outside the city. So Joe, I'm not aware of changes to that. But we have plenty of police officers who live outside the city, but when we first get them on board, I believe they're city residents.
Okay, I'm not sure about the timing of the requirement for city residency, but I know the chief about this. One of his major concerns was there'll be people coming into the recruit class that aren't really.
You have to
familiar
be.
with the city. So this is one way to address that problem and making sure that everybody that comes into the recruit class is familiar with all parts of the city. So I mean, that's something that, I don't know if the laws, I mean, the city ordinance or whatever it is that controls that has changed, but I know that we do have recruits coming in November that may not be as familiar with the city of Albany. They're not currently residents, or maybe they will have to be, I'm not sure. He didn't address that at all when he talked about this program.
Oh, okay. Well, it makes sense that new recruits want to become more familiar with the neighborhoods and so on and so forth. So, they may have been short-term residents. But as far as other city employees, Chris, no, they need to be city residents. There's a couple of instances where we have granted waivers for various reasons, but in general, there is people who work for the city of Albany have to be city residents.
Thank you.
Okay, actually I got clarification from the chief on it, but there's probably a workaround in there somehow to get these people in there, because, I mean, last I heard, I think we were down 60 officers and more retiring and leaving every day. So even when we get a new class of 30, they don't anticipate more than 25 maybe actually hitting the streets. That'll barely keep up with the turnover. So in order to get back up to full force, he's really got to try to increase the recruit training.
No, I thought this program sounded great because the officers do need to get to know, the lay of the land and have people who know the neighborhood, meet with them, talk to them, show them around. It makes a lot of sense. Do you have any idea how many people they're looking for from any one neighborhood to help with this?
We're looking for at least one and one backup for each neighborhood to make sure that there's always somebody available to meet with the recruit. If we have more, it's even better because we'll need some backups. It's a 1 hour commitment every week for, I think it's basically 15 weeks. And then again, be starting another class after that. So we'd like to have as many people available as possible. And it doesn't require a lot of, no requirements. I mean, basically it's somebody that has to be familiar with their neighborhood, want to contribute to it, and in this way, and develop this personal relationship. And again, we want to make sure that these officers have that relationship in the beginning. One of the suggestions that came up is maybe, fine, have them come to a couple of neighborhood meetings as well. But just to get out and get familiar with the neighborhood. And so also, so they have some sort of buy-in to each neighborhood as well. The connections will be there. And the hope is that those connections and relationships will continue throughout their career. Any other questions on it?
Joe, that's certainly an important initiative. Please, share all of your flyers and information. We'll help get the word out when it's time. It's a great program.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I believe our last comments come from Albany County Legislator Lynn Makakis. So Lynn, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, I gotta unmute you.
I'm gonna have to learn how to sing and dance a little bit better. I always get the last word. We're also doing our budget process right now, so that's very exciting. It looks like it's gonna be about 700 and something million dollars. We just had our second hearing this evening, and I wanted to say what Michelina was talking about that ERAP program. The county got $9 million, and I heard this evening that we have already distributed 7.3 million of it. So landlords have been getting the money, and things are happening, and I believe more is going to come. I wanted to mention, I don't know if you heard that Honest Weight, of which I am an owner, I will shameless self-promotion, opened a kitchen in the back of Maria College, and it is open to the community over there, and it's called Honest Weight Kitchen, and I guess they're serving lunch. I don't think they have a lot of groceries, but if you need a sandwich or a salad, it's like a spin-off little location, and it is open during the day. That's what I know about that. We're having a fall festival at Lawson Lake, which is your county park, which I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's worth a ride, on a Saturday from 11 to 4, a fall festival. I think they're going to serve hot dogs and hamburgers from 12 to 3. Equinox is serving up Thanksgiving dinner again this year, the same way they did it last year, which I thought to be a win-win situation. So they're doing superior fundraising, and then they're engaging local restaurants to deliver meals and volunteers to deliver them throughout the whole week of Thanksgiving. So it's not, so it's, you know, the restaurants get paid for their work, which is helpful to them. So if you know any restaurants that want to participate, you know, any people that need a food delivery, the big number is 434-0131, and you can get pretty much, and if you want to make a donation, please don't hold back. I did want to say what Michelina was talking about CDTA and Carmen Basile. You know, I don't know if you've been on their website lately, but they do have a lot of interesting programs. They do that flex thing, which is kind of like a Uber style small bus pickup up by the Cross Gates Mall area, because they were having a little low end to go up to the jail and the nursing home. You can call these flex things. And you know, with the scooters and the bicycles, and that new car share is going to be really exciting. They bought out the community program that wasn't so successful, and so I think he's one of the most open and forward-thinking commissioners, of kind of guys that I've met with. You know, as in my role as a mass transit person. You know, he really wants to do more. He wants to get more employers involved in programming that getting reduced fare bus passes. He wants everybody to be riding the bus or some other kind of public transportation rather than their own car. So if you have any ideas, or if your employer is interested in looking for programs there, you just give me a call. I can hook you up, or you can call him directly. He's pretty accessible. I think that is about all I had. Oh, you know, Christmas is coming, so there's going to be a lot of adopt-a family things at the county level. And I would like to remind you to vote. I believe that in-person voting is starting pretty soon, and you know, we have that day coming up, and it's our civic duty. And I'm always kind of sad at the turnout. So bring a couple neighbors with you when you go vote. Anyway, that's it.
All right, well, thank you for that update as well. I think that concludes our updates and probably concludes our meeting. I don't know if Hillary or Chris or anybody else or Julie has any other comments, but that's it for me. I'd like to thank everyone for participating, for all the comments and the presentations, and to have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like our